asked me just to give a short presentation on why I produce and why I think it's important that information and resources on black history and the black contribution, in particular, as I said, what I do in all areas of STEM are important for parents and for schools. But what I want to do here today is just show you a few reasons why I think it's important and why I've dedicated so much of my life to this particular area. And one of the things, as I was coming up, I don't mean coming up here, but coming up in age in this country, I was taught about a great man. And this particular person, I listened and I learned about his story, and it inspired me to go on and do many different things, and this is just one of them. And one of the things that he said, and I concurred certainly at the time, and to this day I still see that, but it inspires me to continue with this particular work. His words were, "The world has made being black a crime, but I hope to make it, or I intend to make it a virtue." And that person was Marcus Messiah Garvey. Does anybody here know who I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay, great. So, what I want to do is illustrate my point and what that has done in terms of the psyche of both parents, teachers, and in particular, our children. Now, it was mentioned, and I concur with all the speakers that have gone before me. Everything that's said, I think it's spot on. And one of the things which is absolutely true, and I hope I get it right, I think it was Precious or Peaches would say, attention goes where energy flows. Yeah? I will add to that and say, whatever you focus on expands. And I've tried to produce material that would engage young people's minds in order to focus on, in order to expand all their possibilities. I've chosen stories of people who I consider to be successful, and in particular successful in all areas of STEM. But let me show you something. So these are sort of PowerPoints that I do presentations to schools and various different places and so forth. So I'm just going to pick a tiny little section because obviously we don't have time to do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But what I want to... So we're going to start... Okay, let me just say this. When teaching children about the contributions which people of African descent have made in all areas of human activity, both historical and contemporary, is both rich and plenty. The truth is that the African contribution is weaved, although hidden, into the very fabric of every subject taught in schools. The problem is the African contribution has either been erased or appropriated and given credit to others. History cannot be truly taught if the African is erased. And I can give a big presentation on that to prove that particular point. In my opinion, what is currently taught in schools in the UK as well as across the world is both a crime of omission and a crime of commission. That is to say that children of all races are denied real historical truths. Yeah. Say a crime of commission and omission. Omission in the sense that there are historical truths that are left out. But they're not by accident, but on purpose. A crime of commission, because they're not historical, there are lies that are being put in particular books and taught. And so in two ways, there are two crimes that are being committed. Moving. Right, we'll go back to school just for a little while here. Yeah? So we've got some pictures up there, and I'm asking a question. Who am I? Who am I? So I normally do this with adults and children. It's quite interesting to hear the answer. So I'm going to ask, the person at the top over there, can I have a show of hands? Who knows who the person in red up there is? And it's a young person, instantaneously puts their hands up. Tell everybody. Who?
Stormzy.
And what does he do?
He raps.
He's a rapper. He's a rhyme artist. Okay. Right. The lady in the middle, who's that? Show of hands. Okay, lady over there. Who? And what did she do? Absolutely, absolutely. The person over there, now I don't want anybody to get this one wrong.
We know it's Arsenal, that's
Please.
right.
I should see everybody's hands on.
I'm not an Arsenal fan.
I'm a Liverpool fan, I don't know.
Of course, well done. That's good. So you need to change your team. Okay, the person at the bottom, who's that? Show of hands. No, you can't answer it.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, show of hands, everybody else. Sorry? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Sorry. Person in the middle, who's that? Show of hands. What? Somebody says an author. Any more takes on that? Has he passed? He has, yes. You want to say? You just...
No, no, I can't have to like guess the author's name.
Sociologist, author. Anybody else? Nobody else? Okay, we're going to move. This lady here. Who's that?
Hidden Figures.
How many of you here have seen the film Hidden Figures?
It's not the one that does like the mask behind it.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Did you learn a lot?
Brilliant. I don't know the name though.
I'm still not going to tell you just yet. So, some of you think this lady was in Hidden Figures. Is that correct? Okay. Who's that gentleman up there?
The black James Bond.
And what did he do? Absolutely. This young lady there in the middle. Who is she? Sorry? And what did she do?
It's Riri.
A young man up there.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, Dizzy Rascal. The rapper.
He's rapper. Absolutely. Does anybody know any of these three people here? I'm going to rush through
He's the
this.
one.
No, I think Latimer, that's it.
Okay. So you say Latimer.
That's who I think is Lewis Latimer. Lewis Latimer, Howard Lewis Latimer.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, I showed you 6 figures, pictures at the top and 6 at the bottom, 9 all in all. For the ones at the top, you all scored 100% because you're all correct. For those at the bottom, yeah, you scored a maximum of, well done to you too, 10%. Yeah? So you might, if you want, give yourselves a round of applause for that. But I was always taught in school, I think 50% is a pass mark. And unfortunately, you all fell to the back of the class. Okay, the reason I showed this, and I'm going to wrap up now because I'm told out of time. I wanted to show something here, which I think is very important. See, all of the people at the top, yeah, all use what these people at the bottom have created. Yeah? These people at the bottom are great scientists and great inventors. Yeah? And if this thing could move back, to show you that the person that we saw previous, which is quite right, to the on this side of me, to the right, was Lewis Latimer. And he was a great inventor and a draftsman and many other things. But one of the great things he did, as well as the light bulb, but the one I'm talking about in particular at this particular moment, is that he was a pioneer in the creation of the telephone. It was Lewis Latimer who worked alongside Alexander Graham Bell and was the person that drew up the what would you call it, patent, the patents for the telephone, in order to allow Alexander Graham Bell to get that patent on the and to be known as the inventor of the telephone. Without Lewis Latimer being able to describe how the electrical and the mechanical parts all work, right? Bell would not have been able to get the patent. Bell couldn't do that. He had to go to Latimer. And then there was another person, this man here in the middle, Granville T. Woods. In his time, he was known as the greatest electrical engineer on the planet. It was his invention, called the carbon microphone, which his friend Lewis Latimer introduced him to his colleague Alexander Graham Bell, A.G. Bell, and Alexander Graham Bell bought the patent for the microphone, the carbon microphone, from this man here, Granville T. Woods. Now the phone would not work, could not function without a microphone. So the very beginning, the phone, the concept of the telephone, and I would argue is probably the most important invention of the 20th century, 19th century, to where we are today. Yeah? All of these people, including this man here, Dr. Mark Dean, who invented, amongst many things, but when we're talking about telecommunications, he invented a thing called the 1 gigahertz microprocessor in the early 80s, 1980s. And without that 1 gigahertz microprocessor, what we have today in terms of computing power and technology, so that your desktop computer, your laptop computer, your tablets, and of course your mobile smartphone, because this thing, all it is a miniature computer that we carry around with us. If it wasn't for his invention of this 1 gigahertz microprocessor, we probably wouldn't have devices like this as small as this that we can fit into our pocket. Yeah? And then you have this person here, Dr. James West. As I said, we talked about Granville T. Woods with the microphone. But the carbon microphone was used up until a new microphone was invented, which was called the electric microphone. And the electric microphone is the microphone that we currently use today. In 98% of all devices, including this here, it's using the technology that this man invented. Yeah? In your smartphone, in your tablet, in your computer, everything, where there's a microphone, we're using this man's technology. This man, Dr. James West, his role model, one of his people that inspired him to become the great physicist and electronic engineer that he is today, was this man there, that man there, Granville T. Woods. He read stories about that man and learned about that man. You have one woman in there. Some of you said hidden figures. Well, no, she wasn't in Hidden Figures, but it is quite interesting that part of that concept of the whole Hidden Figures thing was what inspired her to become the great theoretical physicist that she is. And what I mean by great theoretical physicist, she is the person, based on her research, that has allowed us to have things such as caller ID, call waiting. Yeah, you know those things on your phone? This woman here, as well as advancements in fiber optic technology. Why I've mentioned Hidden Figures is because it was both in the States at the time 2 incidents that changed her life. She was born and brought up in Washington, D.C., and at the time she went to a segregated school. The Brown versus Brown incident, the famous Brown versus Brown case in the States, which basically so-called ended certain I would call apartheid laws or Jim Crow type laws in the States, allowed her to go to a mixed school. When I say mixed, with different races. But the point is, what was important about that is that she didn't have to travel miles to go to school anymore, and of course she had better equipment, the new school that she went to. But also, the space race was on. Sputnik had gone up, and of course the Americans were trying to get into space as well. And so there was a lot more money pumped in the science areas, and people were generally very interested in that particular area. And so she was one of these people. Brilliant at maths, brilliant at physics in the end. Her father taught her to aim for the stars, because if you miss the stars, at least you'll hit the treetop. Yeah? And her mother taught her stories about great black scientists and inventors. So it was those two things that helped to shape her mind as she was coming up. This man, Jesse Russell, as I finish this bit here, again, we wouldn't have this thing, the smartphone, without this particular man in his field of research, which is called digital signal processing. Working at AT&T Bell at the time, they could not provide, they couldn't make the technology commercial enough for it to be marketable for all of us today to be getting around with mobile phones. But as he was a leader in that field, digital signal processing, he showed them how you could get more people on a small bandwidth, more people using it without there being any problems. And so his intervention in that, a few years later, allowed mobile technology to move at an exponential rate in terms of being available on the market. Now, I mention these things because I believe telecommunications, certainly the telephone in the 20th century, I believe is probably the most important electromechanical invention. And certainly in the 21st century with the microprocessor and various other aspects, the microphone and so forth, is probably so far of the 21st century. Because everybody here, I imagine, is able to use a computer, has some involvement with computers or on the internet, and most people, if not everybody, has at least one, if not two or three smartphones. Yeah? But yet, we know very little of the people that contributed in these particular areas. And as young people are constantly involved on the computer and telephones and so forth, one of the things that I want them to know is there are people that look like them that have contributed in this particular area and are still contributing in this particular area. And if they can do these types of things, you can do it too.
Exactly.
So that's just one small aspect out of the contributions in Black Science Inventors, but it's much, much deeper, and I can show you how it touches every aspect of our lives. Yeah? But this is one small instrument, if we use it in the right way. Yeah? You don't have to be on Facebook and these other things wasting your time, but you can use these particular things to educate yourself in some aspect or another. So I'll finish there. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you,
I have
Michael.
all this